You're listening to Radio Cosmos.
All night long.
Bravo!
My compliments, little lady.
Commercial!
Break for 30 seconds. Get to home mission.
You are now listening to BaaD Radio.
Hello and welcome to BaaD Radio. BaaD stands for Business at a Distance. This is a show about local businesses and business networking. We are here in the News Radio WFLA Orlando studios from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Sunday. I kind of flopped over that one, but you know what? We're going to keep rolling with it. It's WFLA Orlando studios from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. noon every day. I'm already just having a rough time this morning, but you know what? Like I said, we're going to keep rolling with it. Before I jump into the show, I want to give a shout out to some of our show sponsors because without their support, we would not be here today. First off is Forge IT Consulting, providing a fully outsourced IT department with a personal touch for small business. In Osteopathic Health of Orlando, they offer integrative medicine and regenerative medicine and so much more. Visit osteopathic.healthcare. All right, so now that I've got all of my jumpies out of the way, I'd like to introduce Cheryl Minardi, and she is a health insurance employee benefit broker, and through this whole show, we're going to explain exactly what that means. So please welcome Cheryl to the show.
Thank you.
There you go. I was like, you can talk now.
Okay.
And I am very excited to have you on the show today because I learned through the years that I was taught, let's just go back to the beginning. I was taught that in order to have health benefits, which were a must, you have to have health benefits.
Absolutely.
You have to have insurance. Yeah. You have to have all the things that you had to have a job.
Well, a lot of people do think that, but you don't have to necessarily have to have a job. There are other ways of getting insurance, and it's more on an individual basis.
Right.
So it really depends on what you're looking for. There's all different types of health insurance benefits available.
So back, let's rewind to, let's say, our parents' generation, right? So my dad will be 80 in January. No, he'll be 80 this next following year, and then my mom's not far behind him, and so that is where I got my information from, is that you have to do certain steps in life, and that's what life is, and that is you go to school, you graduate, you go to college, you graduate, you get married, you get a job, you get the kid, you know what I mean? It was like it was all planned out, and
right.
as an adult or a child growing up, I never veered from that plan. I didn't actually realize that there was an option to veer from that plan. I just did what I was told, and
right.
as I get older, I start to realize that there's a whole different world out there besides just the nuclear family. So, with insurance, well, first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about you. What is your background, and how did you end up doing what you're doing now?
Well, I've actually been doing financial planning and financial services and insurance sales for probably about 26 years or so. Over the past 8 years, I added health insurance into my mix to, give my clients additional benefits. And it's really taken off. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of evolved as my life has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
You have different challenges in your life, and life throws you curveballs,
sure
and
does.
You just never know. You just never know. But health insurance, I really feel that there's a huge need for somebody like me because, like you said, it's not just go to work and get your insurance through your work, and that's the end of the day. It's no longer like that.
Right.
There's so many different options out there, and it's very expensive. And it's very expensive not to have it.
Right.
So having a broker that can work through all the different options and the different plans, and making sure your doctors are on the plan and your medications that you're taking, and your different needs that your family has are all taken into account. That's very important.
Prior to like kind of branching out on my own, I always just used I was blessed enough to work for companies that had a good benefits program.
Right.
And I never thought twice about it. It was, they were all big corporations. But as I started to look into smaller businesses and working with smaller business, I started to realize that smaller business can't afford, first and foremost, those, really good programs. And then they also couldn't afford to split it with you as well. And so that's when I joined like networking groups. And that's when I realized that you don't have to be connected to a job in order to have benefits. So has it always been that way, or did independent insurance come out of a need, or was it always there from the beginning as far as insurance was concerned?
It has, to some extent, always been there from the beginning. However, it has definitely evolved. I think if I had to personally look back at the years that I've been doing financial planning, the Obamacare really kind of kicked it off, and that really put it in front of the consumer, that you could actually go online and, get insurance and get a subsidy that will help you pay for your insurance.
Right.
So that when that came into play, that really put the ball back in people's courts. They did have other options that were easily available for them.
Can you explain to me what Obamacare is? I've heard it. Again, at the time I was working for a corporation and I didn't really pay much attention to it, but I heard it numerous times. I still don't have any clue what it is.
Obamacare actually is no longer available.
Right.
It's now called the Affordable Care Act. It's evolved over the years.
But wasn't Obamacare just kind of like a nickname anyway?
Yeah. It came out right when he was president.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't usually, call it, people call it Obamacare because it was marketed for so many years on all kinds of avenues.
Right.
So it was in your face, Obamacare. But it has evolved quite a bit. And the subsidy amounts have changed quite a bit over the years as well.
The subsidy amount, what does that mean?
What that means is it's the amount of benefit that you're going to get per month based on your household income.
Okay.
So what we do is we take a look at how you file your taxes, who's on your tax return. We look at your modified adjusted gross income, which is going to be on your household. And then based on that and the number of people that you're looking to insure and the ages and your county in Florida, which is a big thing.
Is it really?
Absolutely. We take a look at all those different things and plug it into our formula, and you get a specific subsidy. So what that means is that if, let's say Florida Blue is going to charge you X number of dollars a month for your health insurance, but your subsidy is going to offset so much, so that the net amount is the amount that you pay every month.
Okay. So lots of questions there. So so it kind of sounds like when you're like applying for a loan or something where they take all of your information and figure out what your netting each month, and then they base the insurance program based off of how much money you have. So the same program can cost different for different people?
It's based only on income level. Okay, so we don't look at how much you have in the bank or your retirement plan or if you own a house. We don't look at any of those factors. It's really very straightforward. And we don't usually request any proof of your income. So we take whatever, the client is expecting that their income is going to be for that particular year. Obviously, it can change. Something like COVID hits and, you might think you're going to make $50,000, but guess what? Now you're not working or everything changes. Or maybe you're in a job that is all commission and, you have good years and bad years. So what happens is at the end of that year, you get a Form 1095 from the marketplace, and that
Actually, that music means that we're going to go to break, but I want to pick up right there. So, you guys, everybody stay tuned. We have more BaaD Radio coming up. Well, welcome back. And this portion of the show is brought to you by Body Street of Winter Park. Experience EMS Fitness Studio, where it only takes 20 minutes a week to get a full body workout. Visit bodystreet.us for your free trial.
We want to pump you up.
Thank you so much. All right, we're here with Cheryl Minardi, and we're talking, she is a health insurance employee benefit broker, and she was right in the middle of explaining to us, and I'm just going to let her pick that up as far as what you're explaining to us. So,
yeah. I got it. So before we went to break, we were talking about the subsidy amount and how you qualify based on income. So
is the subsidy what I'm paying out?
No, the subsidy is what you're getting. That's a government subsidy. So you're getting that benefit. Okay. You don't actually receive it, but it's going towards your health insurance benefits. What happens is when I do the application, I'm going to ask you what your expected household income is for your family, or for how you file your taxes, like who's on your tax return, what is the estimated modified adjusted gross income. Okay. So that's going to be an estimated number. And obviously, like I said, you don't always know what you're going to make. I mean, some people are W-2, they have a secure job. They know that they're always going to make that amount of money. Some people do not. So we make our best estimated guess. And then at the end of the year, the marketplace, which is the Affordable Care Act, that's
and again, I want to talk more about the marketplace.
Okay, but they're going to send you a Form 1095. Okay, that form is very important because you're going to use that to do your taxes. And when you put those numbers into your tax return, it's going to basically reconcile, and it's going to tell you, okay, you said you were going to make $50,000. You only made $40,000, or you made $60,000, whatever it is. Based on those numbers, they're going to reconfigure how much you should have gotten for a subsidy. And then based on that, whether it's more or less, that's going to be worked into your tax return. So what I'm trying to say is that you can't fudge it. Okay. So I've had people say, oh, I'm only going to make $30,000, and then they make $60,000. Well, guess what? At the end of the year, you're going to be sorry because you're going to have to pay the difference back, and it's going to come out of your tax return. Right. So you're going to get a big tax bill at the end of the year.
Right.
So you want to be as honest and, make your best estimated guess. Mm-hmm. What I always tell my clients is that, let's say we make an estimated guess, and you're a real estate agent, okay, and you're having a really good year or a really bad year. And as your income is going to be very different, you can always call me or go onto your marketplace application, and you can adjust your income so that you don't get hit with a big tax bill at the end of the year.
But then that will change what you pay each month.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It will. Yep.
So, first, is small businesses your main source of business, or do you work with large, small?
I work with larger businesses and smaller businesses. It just seems like smaller businesses have a need for somebody like me more frequently, because a lot of times you have a business, maybe 8 to 10 people, and they really want to provide those extra benefits for their employees. That's when they're kind of contemplating, okay, should I get group health insurance? Should I offer group life insurance? Should I do disability? Should I do dental and vision? That's where somebody like me can really step in and help them, because based on their budget and the census, meaning all the different employees that they have, we can take a look at really what's going to be the most cost efficient way for them to provide those benefits to their employees. Because employees today it's a very difficult job market. So if you have a good employee, you're going to want to keep them happy. Years ago, people used to get jobs and they used to stay there for 40 years, and they just stayed at jobs. Today, people are moving around. Yeah. They're looking for competitive packages offered by the different employers, I should say. So having an employee benefits package is very, very crucial. And there's a lot of different ways that we can provide those benefits, based on what the company's budget is and what they're looking to pay.
Right. Well, with my husband's company, it's a small business, and they offered, benefits. And so we didn't put the family on it. We put the family, Tom, he was on with his company. And then we had one from the marketplace for myself and our 2 children. And I started to look at his paycheck stubs, and I realized is that he was paying $500 every 2 weeks. So $1,000 a month for just his own health insurance. And that was half.
Yeah.
Like the company was paying half. So it was $2,000 a month. It was United Healthcare. And I was like, holy smokes, I immediately took him off and put him on ours, which wasn't as good of a plan, but it was still a good plan. Theirs was a PPO, blah, 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 and ours was an HMO. But still, you know what I mean? I was like, it saved us so much money to switch them over.
Health insurance, there's no doubt about it. It's very expensive. If you have a true medical plan, it is going to be expensive. That's why the subsidy helps so many people. What I wanted to mention, because you talked about your employer offering you benefits, there is a magic number, and the magic number is 8.5%. So what that means is that if your employer is offering you benefits, okay, you're technically supposed to take those benefits and not apply through the marketplace unless you feel that it's unaffordable. And everybody's definition of unaffordable is going to be different. So there is a rule that if your employer is offering you benefits and the cost to you is more than 8.5% of your income, that's considered unaffordable. And at that case, you don't have to take your employer benefits. You can go to the marketplace.
Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Yeah. So you're kind of held to it unless it gets.
You're supposed to take your employer benefits if they offer them to you.
Well, trust me, that $2,000 or whatever $1,000 was way over 8.5%.
8.5%. Yeah. So it used to be 10%, and now it's 8.5%, which helps people. So it helps lower, what they have to pay for their health insurance, which is good.
And so is it true that the bigger the company, the better the benefits package?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, it's whatever they choose. Yeah, it's whatever they choose. And when you do employee benefits, there's different ways of picking the different plans, because there's hundreds of plans out there
that's another thing I was going to talk into is like how, and that's why people like you are so important, because I've been burned multiple times by not realizing that the experience of the broker is of utmost importance, and knowing what you can and can't do, what you're going to recommend, what you think of from historical, things, because that person didn't ask me a lot of questions, but so I had something that was a historic he didn't ask me about, and next thing you know, I got denied after I had already turned off the insurance that I had, and it was just a mess. Mm-hmm. So experience is, I'm going to say, don't use anybody that doesn't have. You come use Cheryl because she's experienced. That's my point.
One thing I want to add to that is that when you're let's say you are an employer and you're looking for group benefits for your employees, everybody that you talk to, let's say you're getting quotes from United or Florida Blue or Florida Healthcare Plans or whatever company it is, all of the reps or agents or brokers that you're speaking to, they're all going to give you the exact same price. So the price is not going to vary by broker. No, we don't do any markup or anything like that. So we're all going to get you for apples. It's all going to be the same price. But there are a lot of other things that you want to consider when you're talking to a broker. And one of them is, like you touched on, is service. When I work with my small groups, I do employee meetings. I'm there to explain the benefits. That is very important because it takes all the pressure off of the human resource person or whoever's doing the benefits in the company, because that's not their expertise, right? But that's who gets all the questions. So if you have somebody that is going to service the plan, that's really key.
That's music again. And it's hard to believe that's 10 minutes, isn't it? All right, we're going to go to break. When we get back, we'll have more BaaD Radio, so stay tuned. Welcome back, and this portion of the show is brought to you by Ground Up Property Services. Do you know what your sprinkler system did last night? Probably not. So now's a good time to get your irrigation system serviced by Ground Up Property Services today. And be sure to ask for a call with Ground Up about a water sensor too, so your lawn doesn't get too much water. Call 407-468-4295 or visit groundupinc.net. And we're working on a new website for them, so it's going to look fantastic when it gets here. Okay, so we're here with Cheryl Minardi, and she is a health insurer, or like I said, she's somebody who takes care of health insurance and employee benefits. She's a broker. So what a broker means is that she is not filed into just being able to provide services from one company. So you said that there are hundreds of companies out there that sell health insurance. How do you know which is going to be the best? Like, how do you spend the time to learn all the ins and outs of each of the companies?
Well, as far as the different plans that are available, they all kind of fall into certain categories.
Okay.
So when I look at a summary of benefits page, which is the page that tells me all the nuts and bolts of the
So you reach out to Florida Blue, or you reach out to Aetna or United Healthcare or whoever, and you're like, okay, give me 2026's setups or whatever it is. Like, what are the changes? What are the costs? What are the things that I'm going to be pitching to my clients?
Okay, so because I do group benefits and individual benefits and Medicare, there's 3 different systems that I use. Okay.
Jeez, wow.
So with my group benefits, once we get our census of the employees, I reach out to the different companies and I get quotes based on the census of the company and how it's made up.
Okay.
So then they give me numerous pages and pages and pages of all the different plans.
Will you negotiate them with them at that time? Or?
There's no negotiation. That's what the rate is what the rate is.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing that we can do. However, we can find a better plan, and sifting through the plans is very important because you want to make sure that you find a plan that's going to give you what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, on the group benefits, if you have a little older demographic, you might want to make sure that you have, proper coverage for specialists, because chances are they're going to more specialists. Mm-hmm. Or maybe the hospital deductible is going to be a little bit more reasonable, as opposed to if you have a younger population, younger demographics, then you're going to want to make sure that your things are going to be covered. Maybe you want a plan that includes a free gym membership. Maybe you want a plan.
I've heard of a lot of them that do that. I actually had one that as long as you'd send them something, they would pay for your plan, your gym for the month.
They're all different. Everybody has different bells and whistles. And that's where you want to, have somebody that is going to be able to help you sift through it. I remember when I first moved here to Florida, and we had to get the marketplace insurance, which at the time was Obamacare. And I remember going on the website, and I kind of had an idea. I wasn't selling health insurance yet, but I had a pretty good idea of working with insurance companies of the different plans. And I remember it took me like 8 hours to sift through.
Bless your heart.
Because I was looking at all the, maybe
Right.
I knew a little too much. I was sifting through everything as opposed to just picking something. But it can be very overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So on an individual basis, when you go on to, if you want to do it on your own, you can go on healthcare.gov and you can do your own application and you can sift through the plans and pick your plan and do everything yourself. You are not paying any less or any more by using a broker. So
and how do
why
you
wouldn't
get
you?
paid?
The insurance companies pay you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
well,
they
then,
pay
then
you.
that's fair.
Yeah.
Then
So
that makes sense. So
and actually, when you do it on your own, there is an agent getting paid, even though they're not doing anything.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little silly. I have clients who call me. They say, well, last year I did it on my own. This year I'm going to use you. And I say, well, you already have an agent. And they say, how could I have an agent? I said, because you did it on the marketplace and they assigned you an agent, even though you never spoke to them. They got paid on it.
Thank you from the agent, the no-name agent that got paid on you doing all the
That
work.
did nothing. Yeah, they did nothing. And that's why I always tell people, you just use an agent because you're not paying any more, and you can, take all of their expertise and use it to your advantage, to maybe feel a little bit more comfortable and to have somebody to call when there's something that goes wrong.
Right.
Something, I had whether it's, a client will call me and they say, oh, my wife got pregnant, so we're going to be going to the hospital this year, or, she needs to go to the OBGYN, or, my son got cancer, or, something, I'm on the way to the hospital. Is this hospital covered? There's a lot of different service issues.
What I thought was so intriguing and really touched me was that I went to you and I said, these are, this is my situation. We have like husband, wife, daughter, son. These are our ages. We're healthy. However, we need certain things like, we need to be able to go see dermatologists. We need to be able to go, we need a good mental health plan. We need certain things that are on there. But you were so dead honest with me. You were like, you did all this work, provided me with the best plans, and then you pass it over to somebody because you don't do that. And I was like, how blessed is that you took? I mean, I didn't even know what to say except for thank you for doing that.
It's because I am registered as a marketplace agent. However, on the individual side, on the marketplace side, I am captive with Florida Blue and Florida healthcare plans. Not for
for me and for what I needed, Florida Blue was not the right fit.
Right. And even though there is no discrimination for pre-existing conditions or anything like that, it is very important to let your agent or representative know that you see a specialist, or you are on an expensive medication. If you're taking Ozempic or if you're taking Manjaro, that's important to know.
Those are the weight loss.
Yeah.
I know Ozempic is.
It's for diabetes, right?
Uh-huh.
You have to, for diabetics. Okay. So if you're taking those expensive medications, you're going to want to make sure that you're on a plan that has a very low copayment for that tier. So we look up the drugs, we look up the doctors, we make sure everybody's on the plan. And sometimes Florida Blue and Florida healthcare plans, sometimes it's not the best fit, but I can see all the different plans. So in your case, I was able to see a specific company that would have been a better fit for you. Now, sometimes people will give me lots of doctors. They say, I have to go see this person and this person and this person. I say, well, okay, if you do that and if you want to go on that plan for those doctors, it's going to be $300 more a month. Well, I don't have to see them. Okay. Yeah. So I quickly find out how important those doctors are to you based on how much you're willing to pay to see those doctors.
Well, so let's go ahead and name off the different things that we look at. So the things that people find important, it always boils down to money. So you have HMOs and you have PPOs. Is there any other category besides an HMO and a PPO?
Those are the two major. Okay. I mean, they call them, some of them are called EPOs, or some HMOs don't require referrals or something like that. So there's, so the little gray areas.
The HMO gives you least amount of flexibility. But if you work it the way it's scheduled to work, you can do really well. Like if you use the doctors that are in network, if you use, then it can be a very, very well-planned program for you.
HMOs are great, but you have to know your plan. That's all.
Yeah.
You have to know your plan. If you are in an HMO and, you want to go see a specialist in New York, or, you have somebody you want to go see in a different area or out of your county, okay, and they're not on the plan, well, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah,
okay?
You're going to pay out the nose.
Right, you're going to pay. It's going to be out of network.
Yeah.
But if you stick within your network, and I know specifically with the Florida Blue HMO, my husband was really ill. He caught COVID and he was on a ventilator for 2 months.
Oh my.
We had an HMO, which was great. Everything was covered 100%. And instead of having $1.5 million of bills for that year, we ended up having to pay just our, co-payments and max out of pocket, which I think for us was like $1,800.
Wow.
So it was very, 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 very good for us.
Wow.
And even though he has lots of doctors, it was still fine.
Amazing. Well, we're going to run to break, and then we have one more segment. So like I said, I could talk to you all day long about this stuff. But we're going to, like I said, we're going to go to break. We'll be right back with more BaaD Radio. Welcome back to the show. Looking for a place to go with friends or meet new ones? Then you're looking for Frogger's Grill and Bar. And with 4 great locations, there is bound to be one near you. And you don't want to miss out on Frogger's amazing menu where everything is fresh, never frozen. Oviedo, Mount Dora, Apopka, and Altamont Springs. Frogger's Grill and Bar, hopping with food and fun. Oh, where was my little...
Yeah, boy!
There. Thank you, Ken. You looked a little... He was like, I guess I'll hit the button. All right. So we've been having a very in-depth conversation with Cheryl Minardi, and we've been talking about health benefits and as well as employee benefits. And so she... I'm a little frustrated because like we have so much to cover and it feels like the time is just flying. So we're going to have to get you back in here again to talk about that. But for right now, what I really wanted to kind of dive into is what you brought up about open enrollment and Medicare. Is it Medicare or Medicaid?
Medicare.
Yes, okay.
Medicare.
So let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, this is our Super Bowl season. This is our open enrollment. Okay, so yesterday, October 15th, started open enrollment for Medicare, and that is going to go till December 7th. And then open enrollment for under 65 is going to start November 1st, and that goes until December 15th.
What does that mean exactly?
What that means is that this is the time of year that you want to update your policy for next year.
Okay.
So if you don't have insurance right now and you want to get insurance for next year, this is the time to do it. Because if you want to change your policy during the year, most times you can't. Okay, you need what's called a special enrollment period. So it's very difficult. So this is the time it's open to make any changes on your policy, start a new policy, add somebody to your policy, delete somebody from your policy. Lots of different things that you can do right now. Now's the time to do it.
And how long does the open enrollment last?
For open enrollment for regular under 65 people is going to last until December 15th.
How many days? Is that 3 months?
November 1st, it's what, 6 weeks.
Yeah. Okay. That's not that much. Actually.
It's not that much, which is why I work 7 days a week. And I do about 90 hours a week during open enrollment. But what's interesting to know is that a lot of times they do extend open enrollment for under 65 until January 15th, but that gives you a February 1st start date.
Understood.
Okay. So they add a little extra on just in case you miss it. Okay. I do most of my applications the last 2 weeks because people wait to the last minute. So I highly recommend that if you're going to be looking at plans for open enrollment, start in November, start before Thanksgiving.
Oh, girl, I'd go out and buy a bunch of like gift cards for like Target or something and say, hey, if you get to me by this date, you'll get a $25 gift card just so that I don't have to do all that work in the last 2 weeks of open enrollment.
Right. It's a lot because what I have to do every year is I have to go back and reach out to all of my clients as well to make sure that they're still on the best plan for them. I talk about if there's any plan increases, any changes in their plan, any changes in their needs going forward and their income.
Sorry to interrupt you, but is there changes every year or do sometimes?
Oh, there's always changes. Yeah. And there's always changes to networks. You have to be very careful with your doctors because every year those doctors negotiate what plans they're going to take and what companies they're going to take. So those negotiations actually go sometimes up until October 31st.
Well, that's a problem because that's during open enrollment. So that could make a huge difference on what plan somebody picks.
Well, no. Open enrollment for those plans are going to be November 1st.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So they're good. So that's why they go right up to the last minute. And sometimes it's big hospitals. Like, we had a situation with like Baycare, which is, a large hospital or, some of the other major hospitals, they have to decide what they're trying to decide is how much they're going to accept for the services that they're offering. And the insurance companies are negotiating how much they're going to pay for those services. So that will determine if they're going to be on our network or not. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that it's very important for people to make sure that their doctors are going to take their plan next year.
Right.
And if they're not, and they're important doctors to you, you're going to want to make sure that you adjust your plan accordingly.
Right. But there's a good chance that doctor might not even know which ones. I mean, they might still be in a negotiation process, right?
Well, no, because once open enrollment starts, it's usually set.
Right.
Yeah. So it's usually set by the time the open enrollment starts so that people can make informed decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know there's certain doctors that it's taken us a while to get through the HMO system to where we have the doctors that are in network, that make sense, that work with us financially, that all the things, right? And then starting with next year, they're not going to accept the plan anymore. And I'm like, okay, well, it looks like we're going back to the drawing board.
It happens a lot, unfortunately. What's important for people that are over 65 or that are on Medicare is if you're on a Medicare Advantage plan, those are changing drastically. So it's very important to look at those every year. To make sure that your doctors are on those plans, especially if you're on Medicare, because you're probably using more doctors. So you're, a little bit on the older side, and you really want to make sure that those doctors are going to be covered. And with all of the changes that are happening with Medicare, it's very important to double check that, because a lot of doctors, I've had situations where doctors are no longer taking Medicare Advantage. They're only taking the supplement plans.
Oh, wow.
So it's important for our retirees to know exactly who's on their plan.
Call you for that information.
Absolutely. When I do Medicare, I take a list of all of their doctors and all their medications, and I plug it into my system. And then I can see, based on their doctors and their medications, what's going to be the best plan for them in their county. That's available.
And how would you like these people? Because that, like what you're saying right now, is a perfect demographic, especially for this radio station. So, like, if you could talk to 100,000 people that are in your target demo, what exactly would you say to them?
I would tell them to ask their doctors or check with their doctors to make sure that they're still on the plan. If they are not going to be on the plan, or if they're just looking for maybe more competitive plan, maybe something that their medications aren't as expensive, or
they're all
something
usually
like that.
on fixed income.
Absolutely. And then they also want to see if they get any aid, from Medicaid.
And can you help them with that as well?
I cannot do a Medicaid application, but I can check to see if they would possibly qualify. Okay. I always tell my clients that if they're on a lower income and they're receiving Medicare Advantage, that they want to go ahead and apply for Medicaid to see if they qualify for any benefits, because it may help reduce the cost of their Part B, or they may get a kickback from their Medicare Advantage plan, or there's lots of different things to consider when it comes to Medicare. And I just warn people, do not fall prey to all of the different advertisements and cold calling and flyers that they're getting in the mail, because a lot of these Medicare Advantage plans have all these wonderful bells and whistles, but when it comes time to needing the care, they may not cover certain things. So it's important to really know your plan and work with somebody that knows all the different plans.
So first and foremost, talk to your doctors, the ones that you plan on keeping, start staying with, and making sure they're keeping either the Medicare Advantage or if the subsidies, right? And then second is call you. So go ahead and give you all your contact information. I'm going to have you do this a couple times.
Okay, so what I would recommend doing is they can email me, and my email is floridabluecheryl at gmail.com. Or I usually give out my personal cell phone.
I'll give you a cell phone. Cell phone's fine.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
So I usually, for my health insurance business, I always give out my cell phone because I answer it all the time. Sometimes people call at 7 a.m, and sometimes they call at 11:30 at night. Not that I'm recommending it, but sometimes it happens. So that's why I give out my cell phone. My cell phone is 203-339-2900.
Okay.
And that's my personal cell phone.
And so would you recommend people call or text?
Text is always best, because if I'm on the phone with somebody else, I can always, I always go back and review all the texts for the day and make my notes and make sure that I get a return phone call out there.
Okay, so email one more time and text one more time.
Okay. For texting, my personal cell is 203-339-2900. And my email is floridabluecheryl@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. And you guys, thank you for listening to BaaD Radio this week. Have a great week. And remember to support local.